Hi, everybody. First of all, please turn your cell phones off, okay? Thank you for understanding that today here at Writer's Block, it's much more fun than a baseball game, a game that, like politics, can lead to joy or heartbreak. So here's to victory, LA. I'm Andrea Grossman, the founder of Writer's Block, now in our 30th year. Thank you. Writer's Block audiences are lovely, and many of you today are my friends and family, and I know you're not inclined to cause a ruckus and make a scene, but today the floor belongs only to the gracious governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, and to podcast host extraordinaire Brian Tyler Cohen. Behave, no outbursts, none of that. Okay, there's a lot of security, a lot of really lovely Kentucky State Troopers, a lot of other security, so I've read you the rules of the road. Now for today, how does Governor Andy Beshear do it? How does a true blue Democrat win the governor's seat in Rand Paul's and Mitch McConnell's blood-red state of Kentucky? How does he consistently maintain his goodwill in a state with a supermajority of Republicans in state government? It's clear that he knows how to win. Perhaps it's his authenticity. He stands up for progressive values in that red state and manages to get reelected by double digits. And on top of that, he's one of the most popular governors in the country. When he's not being overridden by his Republican state legislators, in his spare time, he hosts a popular podcast called Andy Beshear Podcast. Okay, like creative people here in LA, I know we could come up with something, but that's not my job today. He covers everything from big topics to pop culture, and he is most certainly a guy to watch. Another guy you probably listen to and watch is Brian Tyler Cohen, host of many podcasts, including No Lie. Brian interviews Democratic thought leaders and receives millions of views. There's not a Democratic elected official who would turn down an invitation from Brian. He's also the author of the best-selling book Shameless, Republicans' Deliberate Dysfunction and the Battle to Preserve Democracy. It's in paperback now, and it's available here today. There are books out in front, and Brian will quickly sign later in the courtyard. So here's what's going to happen today. Governor Beshear and Brian Tyler Cohen will come out right now. Welcome them, take photos, then put your phones away. It is my pleasure to introduce Governor Andy Beshear and Brian Tyler Cohen.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. So, Governor Beshear, help us understand, because we've got a lot of coastal elites here, and a lot of latte-drinking, blue-haired barista coastal elites. We've all followed the news where we see kind of the daily barrage of assaults against democracy at the hands of this administration. We're watching as the Trump administration is right now trying to take $230 million out of the DOJ because Trump feels entitled to it, focusing his energy on his ballroom, the on and on and on. Is any of that having an impact in a state like Kentucky, where we see, for example, that, for so many people, their partisan ideology becomes a part of their identity? But is there a point at which there are so many assaults against this country, there's just so much degradation of the institutions of government that it begins to have an impact?
Well, thanks for having me.
I'm used to jumping right in.
And thanks to everybody for coming. So when I think about that question, the first thing is, yes, party can be a part of someone's ideology. But I don't think people are as partisan as many of us may think. And I think what people care about the most is first their job and whether they can support their family. They care about their next doctor's appointment for themselves, their parents, or their kids. They care about the roads and bridges they drive, the school they drop their kids off at, and whether they feel safe in their community. So when the policies of this president start directly impacting those basic needs, that's when people start talking. That's when people start looking at things differently. Like the president's tariff policy is the single worst economic policy of my lifetime. It changes every day. It went from across the board to reciprocal to industry specific to company specific to product specific. We've even got a tariff against Brazil where we have this huge surplus that's causing coffee and hamburger prices to go up, which I'd say are as American as they can be, but apparently they're also Brazilian. And so when your livelihood is hit that way, when tariffs are causing soybean farmers to not have a market to sell, when cattle farmers are struggling because of the president's deal with Argentina, when the big ugly bill is going to shut down the rural hospital that you go to and is the #1 payroll in your community. If it shuts down, so does the coffee shop, the restaurant, and the bank. Yeah, people are starting to really feel it, and they're going to feel it even more. And as much as somebody might say they're a Republican, they love their family. And if their family's well-being is being impacted, they're going to think differently, and they're going to vote differently.
And have you seen, to any degree, folks that you've spoken with in Kentucky begin to express some, softening on that political partisan ideology?
Absolutely, and I think I think I'm living, breathing proof that people will vote differently. I mean, I won re-election by 5 points in a state that Trump won by 30 the next year. And it's for, I think, the reasons we talked about. I mean, I think if Democrats will spend 80% of their time on things that matter to 100% of the American people, that's how we break through. I think Donald Trump's our current president because he convinced those last group of undecided voters that he would be more focused on helping them pay that next bill and that the vice president was distracted. But think about what he's doing. I mean, he is anything but focusing on affordability. He's telling people that they have too many toys. His tariff policy is making the price of everything go up, and that home that a young couple can't buy right now, that feeling that the American dream is too hard to reach, think about what his new tariffs on lumber, which is the flooring and the walls, on upholstery, which is the furniture, and on cabinets is going to do to that. And so the longer it's harder to get by for families, and the more that they see that Trump held up that giant board on tariffs, he's owned this policy as much as he's owned anything. Yes, we're seeing that softening.
If you could snap your fingers and change one thing that the Democratic Party does, what would it be?
Ooh. All right.
How much time you got?
Yeah. So let me give you 3 if I can.
Keeping that list short, huh?
Yeah. Number 1 is the 80-100. Right? Spend 80% of our time focused on jobs, on health care, on infrastructure, on public safety, and on public education. Yes, stand up for all of our convictions. Yes, fight against any form of discrimination. But the next morning, be opening that next factory. The next morning, be opening that road that saves 20 minutes each way to a family. So that's number 1. That gives people the space to disagree with us on 1 or 2 issues, but know that we are working harder than anybody else to better their lives. The second thing I'd do is I'd get us back to talking like normal human beings. Well, so you've seen this. Advocacy Speak had well-meaning intentions. Its goal was to reduce stigma, but you don't reduce stigma by changing words. You do it by changing hearts. And we now have used so many of these phrases that it sounds like we're talking down to people, or we're talking at them instead of to them. I'll give you a personal example. The opioid epidemic hit Kentucky harder than just about anywhere in the country. We've all lost a ton of people. I've lost about 12. I didn't lose one of them to substance use disorder. I lost them all to addiction. And when you hear the word, right, you're an author. When you hear the word, it's mean, it's nasty, it's a killer. It takes people that you love from you, or when somebody gets into recovery, it gives them the credit for triumphing over something that's so hard. That big ugly bill isn't just going to devastate rural health care. It's going to cut food assistance. Well, we're never going to win that argument if we say more people are food insecure. We're going to win it if we say people are going to go hungry, which they will. Yeah. Though the newest one is justice involved population. Yeah, those are our inmates. And listen, I believe in second chances. We're teaching a skill inside of every one of our prisons. We've got one of the lowest recidivism rates we've ever had, but our inmates call themselves inmates. And so if we are going to communicate to the American people instead of at them, we have to talk like the rest of America. And then the last thing I'd say is we've got to get beyond just the what and get to the why. You know, Democrats are so good about our policies. We memorize all of them from policy point 2, bullet point 3, sub point 4, I underneath. But we rarely talk about the why, what drives us. I mean, a lot of what drives me is my faith. I believe in the golden rule that says we love our neighbor as ourselves, and the parable of the Good Samaritan that says everyone's our neighbor. So when I vetoed a nasty anti-LGBTQ plus bill during my reelection, because it was the right thing to do, I told the people of Kentucky that my faith teaches me that all children are children of God, and I didn't want people picking on those kids.
There are two tacks that seem to be taking hold right now among popular governors in this country, you being one of them, Gavin Newsom, our governor right here in California, being the other, and they don't seem, I can't imagine that they could be more diametrically opposed. Newsom is taking a very forward-leaning approach. We've seen numerous instances where his social media has dedicated itself to mocking the current president. You're taking a more circumspect approach. Which is the right approach as we head toward 2028, kind of given the moment that we're in right now?
First of all, let me say that what Governor Newsom is doing, fighting back on redistricting, is incredibly important, and I'm incredibly proud of him. None of us want to be in mid-decade redistricting, but if Texas is going to basically cheat, Texas sees that they're going to lose the game and thus they're trying to change the rules in the middle of it, then we've got to ultimately stand up and push back. And so here in California is going to be the largest push on redistricting for Democrats. You see Virginia now looks like they're going to do it, and others. I wish we didn't have to do it, but we've got to save democracy before we can perfect democracy.
Agree.
Yeah. I think what you see from different governors is they are pushing back, but in their own style. And we all have our own style. You see Gavin and J.B. Pritzker, who, by the way, face more threats from this president than most of the rest of governors, pushing back a little more directly. For me, I speak out against this president every time I disagree with him. But it's not my style to do the same types of things on social media. And in the end, I mean, people want authentic leaders. They want you to be you. And so I try to lead through who I am, try to speak up and speak out, but do it in a way that is ultimately me.
I want to go back to the LGBT bill that you vetoed. Yeah. What was the pushback that you had heard prior to doing so? In a state like yours, given the political risks and kind of what we had seen from the 2024 election, which in the aftermath felt like the loss that the Democrats sustained was in part, due to the ad, for example, that had played. I think there was something like $250 million behind an ad that punched down on the LGBT community, leading a lot of folks to fear that, okay, if any Democrat wants to succeed moving forward, that you got to throw somebody under the bus.
Well, there's no question in 2023 that our legislature did what they did because they wanted to attack me politically. And I hate the fact that we had a lot of Kentuckians that had to suffer because of it. It was mean, it was unnecessary, and it was making a group of people that are already marginalized feel that much worse in a state that I otherwise love. And so first of all, I was going to veto it the whole time. Some things are worth losing over, and I was going to stand up for those individuals. They are Kentuckians and children of God just like anybody else. But I tell you what, by explaining that why, I didn't lose a single point, not one. They ran $10 million of anti-trans ads. I ran $9 million of, hey, look at all our great new jobs ads. And I won by 4.5 points more in re-election than I won the first time around. And I think that people respect conviction and that we can't abandon them, but they do deserve our respect to explain what we're doing. So I'll never forget, after talking about children of God, the next day I'm open a factory, because the next day we always have to be opening a factory. And a guy in a trucker hat makes a beeline towards me, and I think, oh goodness, I know what's coming. He sticks his hand out and he says, Governor, I'm not sure I agree with what you did yesterday, but I know you're doing what you think is right. And he patted me on the back and walked away. And so just explaining that why creates some grace and some space, either for people to reconsider some things or to support a Democratic candidate that is working to make everybody's life better, even if they don't agree with every single one of our issues.
So I want to talk about other governors across the country. Going back to the Prop 50 of it all, we have seen action from Gavin Newsom here in California, and there were a million reasons to have said, no, we wouldn't be able to do this. I mean, this is, we didn't have much time. This is a huge state, and any kind of action like that could feel like a political liability. We also heard a lot of other governors say the right thing, but thus far we haven't seen any movement other than the surprise news from the Virginia state legislature that they would be moving to convene to discuss the prospect of a map redraw. Are other governors on the Democratic side doing enough right now, given what we've seen on the right, which is map redraws in Texas, map redraws in Missouri, and movement to do so in Ohio and Florida and Kansas and North Carolina, and they're working right now to do so in Indiana? That's up, kind of under a cloud of doubt, but the governor right there is suggesting that he'll be able to get it done in some way. So are we doing enough on our side to be able to counteract this threat?
I think what you're seeing out of Democratic governors is they're being thoughtful, because I think some of this is going to backfire on the Republican states. People don't like you changing the rules of the game. They understand what's going on in California because of Texas, but some of these states where there's just one Democratic congressman or woman, that all of a sudden they split that district up, I think we're going to work really hard and have two Democratic congressmen or congresswomen.
So there is a dummy mander, a potential dummy mander in Utah, where they tried to draw these lines so thin that in an election year, in a wave year, we could see the prospect of, instead of 0 Democratic members of Congress, we could see 2.
And people don't like extremism. I've seen it. I've run against it. In many ways, the incumbent governor that I beat was Donald Trump before Donald Trump. The way he talked to people, the way he acted in office, being anti-vaccine. You saw denying the election when I beat him, and I beat him. So I saw all of that, and I saw how it wears on people. I mean, this idea that the president says, redraw your maps so that we can hold on to more seats, that's going to impact a lot of people that may in the last moments have moved his direction. But now, seeing a lot of these overreaches or suffering economically. I mean, if you're a soybean farmer right now, how do you feel when your main market, which is China, has now gone to Brazil and Argentina, which this president says he's going to send $20 billion to? How do you feel if you're a cattle farmer, that all of a sudden that country that he's going to send $20 billion to, if they elect the person he likes, which is backfiring spectacularly right now in Argentina, how do you think that they feel that American money would be used to ultimately impact their industry and hurt them? So all these things going on at the same time, I think means that regardless of what they do, regardless of how they try to cheat, we must flip the U.S. House of Representatives next year. We absolutely have to.
Is it enough, though, to rely on this idea that Americans are going to see this overreach, see these abuses of power, and maybe, shudder at the prospect of them doing it? Maybe we'll win a few of those people. But the reason that they're doing this, in large part, is because they know that if they can scientifically engineer wins and redraw these districts, that yes, we may get some more people on the margins who see the abuses of power and how egregious it is and say, okay, this is a little too gross for me. I'm gonna, I can go to the Democratic side for now. But really the benefit of being able to redraw these maps is that, if you, even despite the fact that you might get a few people, redrawing these maps in large part does scientifically engineer a win for the other party. And so is it enough just to rely on the fact that, some people are going to see this and bristle at it, as opposed to taking as extreme action as we can to fight back?
Well, we've got to fight back, but we also have to run hard and run well. I mean, I won in a Trump plus 30 state. We can win in these newly redrawn districts.
Yeah.
So we've got to get out there. We've got to knock on doors. We've got to communicate the right way to the American people. We have to convince them that we are the party of the American dream. And right now, over half of Americans, and I think this is the other big threat to our country, over half of Americans believe the American dream is no longer real. That if they play by the rules and work hard, that they still can't get ahead, that they won't be able to buy a house in the 10-year span that their parents could when they were their age. If you feel that way, you're willing to vote for somebody that may come in, tear it all down, or because you believe at least they'll do something. We've got to be the party that can fix that can bring down costs, that can bring up wages, that can assure that you can pay for your child's next prescription, that is understanding that if you don't feel safe in your community, the answer isn't to read you statistics. It's to do more. We can be that party, and that party can win in any of these redrawn districts.
I want to talk about the prospect of some of the danger that we face moving forward. I hear you when you say that there is an agenda that we can put forward to prove to the American people that we're worthy of getting the majority in the House and the Senate and the White House. Do you have confidence, though, as we head toward this next election cycle, where we have seen that Trump, the new news is that Trump is looking to have his DOJ deploy monitors to the elections in California and New Jersey and Virginia. We've seen the ways where he has weaponized the DOJ to help him in these elections. We saw back in 2020 where he tried to get the voting machines in Georgia seized. He did that without any boots on the ground, and now he's got an entire ICE army answerable to him. And so do you have confidence as we head toward 2026 and 2028 that, notwithstanding the message, that there will be the prospect for a free and fair election?
I think there will be, but I don't think we can take it for granted. I think we have to be out there pushing. I think we have to be out there with our own legal strategies. I think we have to be out there with our own monitors if they're going to send them in. We call them poll watchers in Kentucky. We've got to make sure that we are planning for any and every contingency because our country is worth it, and this is the time where we have to step up and protect it. But what I saw, last weekend were 7 million Americans taken to the streets in one of the largest protests that the country has ever seen. And so I have a lot of faith in those individuals. I have a lot of faith in the American people that even with obstacles put up in front of them, that we are going to do the right thing because we love this country and we want to see it persist.
Kind of along the same lines to what I was just asking, Steve Bannon had come out just a couple of days ago and floated the idea. Well, not so much.
I don't know that we should even say his name.
This is the anxiety portion of the show.
Yeah. But I mean, every time that Steve Bannon says something, and then we put it on the news, it gives oxygen to hate. I mean, this is an individual who. Yeah. This is an individual who stands for all the wrong things, that doesn't view people different than him as human. And the fact that he's been embraced by leadership on the other side is worrisome. But, sometimes when people are that hateful, I think the best thing that we can do is ignore them.
Yeah, I mean, I do have to ask the question, and there is a part of me that understands the virtue of not giving oxygen to people who I think are bad faith actors, and the flip side of that, though, is purposefully ignoring what may very well be a threat, and in large part, it's easy to write the things that Trump says off as crazy, but very often he broadcasts his strategy, in broad daylight, and so when he says,
or on Truth Social,
or on Truth Social, when Bannon comes forward, for example, and expresses with utmost certainty that Trump is going to be the president in 2028, that he'll be able to run again in 2028, how does that land with you?
Well, if the Supreme Court will actually read the words of the Constitution and then enforce them, then this is Donald Trump's last term.
I'm going to channel the anxieties of everybody here and say, can we rely on Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, Kavanaugh to do exactly what it is you're saying, which is to interpret the Constitution in good enough faith that we know that they're adhering to the Constitution?
Well, we're going to see. People don't just write biographies on presidents. They write them on Supreme Courts too. And so Justice Roberts is going to have to think about whether his court is going to be the one that gives it all away. Is his court going to be the one that protects this country at that moment, or is his court going to be the one that gives it all away? Because history is watching.
I think as we consider questions like that, a lot of folks are wondering where they can best channel their energy to make the biggest impact. And so for folks who come up to you, and I'm sure as you meet people not just in Kentucky but across the entire country, and they're contending with a feeling of despair that isn't by accident. Like this is a feeling of despair and helplessness that I think the administration wants people to feel, so that they completely withdraw and no longer, and their voice
tune out and turn off.
Exactly. And so, what do you say to folks who are looking to do something, anything in this moment right now, where they are contending with the system that is kind of created so that they'll feel helpless?
Well, first I say thank you, because we need you. I mean, getting out there at this time, probably the most important time, to speak out, to do what you can do, is just critically important. What we've got to do in the next 10 days is win the races for governor in New Jersey and Virginia. And we win both of those, along with the Wisconsin Supreme Court race we won, and that's going to show that Trump is politically a failure in his first year. And hopefully that starts putting pressure on some of those Republicans in Congress that are not doing their job whatsoever, that maybe it's not the right thing to just go along with this president instead of to follow your oath of office that, by the way, you put your hand on a Bible and pledged to do. The next thing we've got to do in the midterms is we have to flip the U.S. House of Representatives. But then we've got to win a lot of governor's races. I'm head of the Democratic Governors Association next year. We have 36 races, so no pressure on me. But if you want 2028 to be decided in more than just 5 states with 0 margin of error, then it's not flipping the House seat in Des Moines, it's flipping the governor's seat in Iowa. That's how we start changing a map, which I think isn't just good for Democrats, it's good for democracy. It gets candidates in more places. It means that more of the people of the United States actually determine the presidency and leadership out there. And so Hakeem Jeffries and I have been working together. We don't view it as an either or. This is an and. We must accomplish both.
Do you think that there's anything that this administration could do that could cause them to lose the support of the folks either in this administration, in the House, in the Senate, just anybody, any elected officials more broadly in the Republican universe? And I ask that because, well, I don't want to tempt fate here, but it's hard to see what, like, we're already in a world.
Isn't it sad that you have to ask that question?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is there anything that the Trump administration could do that could pull support away, in your estimation?
Well, first, we've got 2 officials from Kentucky that refuse to go along with some of Trump's policies, and of all things, it's Rand Paul and Thomas Massie.
I'll tell you, the Trump administration makes for some weird bedfellows.
It does.
I was speaking with Jasmine Crockett 2 weeks ago in a writer's block event, and we had to talk about how Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, was exhibiting courage that nobody else in her party could exhibit.
And so with those 2 individuals, I don't agree necessarily with the reasons on some of the positions that they take, but at least they're principled in taking a position. At least they're doing their job, even if I disagree with how they do their job. It is hard to comprehend how these congressional Republicans, which were successful people before they ran, many of them ran businesses or were good professionals, have suddenly lost all self-respect or the belief that they are supposed to be a separate branch of government. I mean, when Congress suddenly says, oh, we appropriated all this money, we passed it in the form of a law, but you do whatever you want, Mr. President. That's when what the framers built starts breaking down. That's when you don't have the check and the balance that are absolutely necessary. And it's just hard to understand how these folks are willing to sit back when they know this president's doing the wrong thing. When this president takes positions they've disagreed with their entire life. You can't tell me all of those Republicans are pro-tariff, because I know they're not. But they're willing to just sit quietly, not representing the people that elected them, not putting the United States of America first, but being loyal to this president or to their party. That's not why we run for these jobs. And so you know what? I truly believe that all of them ought to get voted out, whether that's in a primary or in a general election. You ought to do your job.
Do you hear from these Republicans? Do you hear from these Republicans behind the scenes? I mean, I understand why. Everybody understands why they're not going to come out and say anything in public.
They don't call me.
That's fair enough. There's no Republicans that you've spoken to that say, look, of course, you know me. Of course, I would. You know where I stand, but I just can't. I can't be the only guy to stick my neck out against this administration.
You know, I don't have a comment about behind the scenes, because if somebody's going to talk to me, then I'm going to keep that in confidence. But there are some that, at least in the margins, are speaking out. Governor Mike DeWine and I were together last week. We're building a big bridge together, which is important. And he talked about his support for a bipartisan plan on redistricting that is much better than what the president is pushing. And he was very open about supporting it. He said to the press while I was there that he disagreed with sending the National Guard into a city where the mayor objected and didn't want them there. It's wild that this is the line now, right? It's wild that we have to get to the National Guard going somewhere where they're not asked, and by the way, they are not trained to do what they're being asked to do. I've called out the National Guard more than any other governor in Kentucky history because of our number of natural disasters, and had to call them out when there was one massive protest. So I know what it looks like when they're needed. But remember, these are our neighbors, right? These are CPAs and welders, mechanics. These are people that have to leave their family and their job, that are trained to help in natural disasters, that are trained to support our military. They are not trained to do what they're being called to do right now, and that puts them in danger and everybody else too. I mean, if we can't all agree, and if every governor won't say, no, you can't send the National Guard from one state to another state where they're not invited, that's a big problem. And again, it's not just folks in Congress that are refusing to speak out. It's a whole lot of officials around the United States. And in the governor's races next year, we're going to point that out every single time.
I hear what you're saying about Governor DeWine. At the same time, when, for example, the new map comes up, the new gerrymander comes up, that's been demanded because Trump issued his clarion call, the real question becomes, do you sign it or do you veto it? And we've already seen how Ohio's maps are already gerrymandered. There was already a gerrymander put forward,
Yeah.
and so I guess the real question is, you can say the right thing, but actions speak louder than words, and so we'll see where Governor DeWine stands when it actually comes time to either sign this map or say no. What I really want is national legislation for independent redistricting commissions.
Well, certainly, and the best thing that could come out of what Texas has done and then what California had to do and others are doing is, after this election, when we restore sanity, how about a constitutional amendment that creates nonpartisan groups that draws these congressional maps in all 50 states?
Yeah. So as we talk about these maps and this topic in particular, it kind of leads me to the topic that I've been thinking about the most over the last 10 months or 10 years, whether you're thinking about it, how it hits you here or not. And that is this idea of fighting. And I think we have seen, past elections kind of feel like a referendum on, progressivism versus moderate. I think as we move forward in this process, it's going to be much more a referendum on Democrats' willingness to fight against a Republican Party that kind of presumes the Democrats are going to be weak and allows them to roll the Democrats over and over and over and over again, change the rules whenever they want to, and Democrats just don't know how to respond. We saw that, with Mitch McConnell and holding that Senate seat open that was supposed to go to Merrick Garland. Those rules get changed, and then as soon as the rules need to be changed back to suit them, they do. And so do you think Democrats get it at this point that we need to be able to fight not just in this theoretical idea of what good governance should look like, but against an actual Republican Party for whom the rules just do not matter?
I think if you go back to Citizens United, that was one of the first examples. That Mitch McConnell and the Republicans changed the rules. They took on all this dark money, and the Democrats said, no, we're too pure. We're never going to do that. And we lost a number of elections. And then we started doing it. Yes, I think that Democrats are ready to fight back, and you see it right here in California's willingness to redistrict. Think about all the steps that California took to change the way that redistricting was going. It's the right thing to do. But right now, you see the threat to this country and are willing to respond in kind to what's happening in Texas. Oh, I think you see a Democratic Party that knows we have to win. Have to. Which means we got to push all the ideological purity tests to the side. We've got to have good candidates that can communicate and get real results. Right now, we absolutely have to win, and I see Democrats willing to do what it takes.
What kind of an impact do you think that Prop 50 passing in this state might have on other governors across the country in terms of not just redrawing the maps, although I would contend, as an issue that I'm particularly focused on right now, I would contend that redrawing these maps is issue number 1, 2, and 3, but just on this broader sense of, okay, let's not for once kind of lead from behind or be as circumspect as we usually are, but take aggressive action in fighting fire with fire.
Well, I think you see that from a number of governors around the country. It depends on the issue that comes up and what's most impactful to that state. I think you see governors trying to lead in a way that's not just them standing out there, but brings their people along, that explains to folks the harm that's occurring right now. I remember when I was Attorney General of Kentucky during the first Trump term, I didn't join every lawsuit. I joined the ones that impacted Kentucky the most so that I could look at Kentuckians and say, this is going to raise healthcare costs for us. This is going to impact rural hospitals. This is going to hurt our farmers. And so for us to not only push back, but try to move this country back together, I think takes the way that governors are responding that ultimately leads our people to a better place. Because yes, we've got to win in 2026. Yes, we've got to win in 2028. But then we got to heal the country. Because this us versus them, it can't go on any longer. We are not each other's enemy. This idea of the enemy within is not who the United States of America is. I think about the pledge and how we pledge to a flag and to a country, not to an individual. But we also pledge to keep our country indivisible. And so I think we've got to lead in ways that not only give people the courage to speak out and preserve our great democracy now, but can ultimately heal this country in a way to where my kids don't have to worry about whether the country will continue each morning or for the next dozen years.
I think that was really well said. I want to play devil's advocate to that point. In the aftermath of Trump 1.0, we had Joe Biden, who was Mr. Heal the Country. His whole thing was trying to bring compromise and unity and kind of a return away from the divisive politics of the Trump era. And cut to what we're left with in the aftermath of that, where we find ourselves right now, is a situation where we are the most divided, where politics is the most acrimonious that it's ever been. And so, when I hear you say that we have to get back to a point where politics is not as ugly as it used to be, it's hard to hear that and not get worried at the prospect of, okay, we tried that once, and this is the reality of where we find ourselves.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges during the Biden administration with the pandemic and others is both the policy and the politics got abstract, right? They were all coming out of Washington. It was all about a signing in a rose garden because with the pandemic, the president couldn't get out. People need to be able to see, feel, and touch things for them to be real. If you say your policies are going to create jobs, you got to be there when you open that factory. I mean, I was able to land the cleanest, greenest recycled paper mill in the world in a former coal town called Henderson. Henderson had voted blue for a long time, but was trending red. And in 19, I won it by about 500 votes. I thought that would be the last time we saw that. But we opened this paper mill a month before the 2023 election, 350 jobs paying $40 an hour. And so when the owner of that paper mill said he's bringing 350 green jobs, everybody got up and gave him a standing ovation because that green was the type that's going to better their lives. I won it by triple in 2023, going from 500 to 1,500. So I do believe that there's a way to heal the country. I believe it's making certain issues not bipartisan, because that's some agreement. It's making them nonpartisan. But it's also showing the American people that the American dream is still real, that it's showing the American people the jobs that are created that change their community. It's showing the American people that you care enough about them to build the road that cuts 20 minutes off each way so you have 40 more minutes with your family, that you care enough about people to where you want a clinic in their hometown that offers the specialty type of care that they need, that you care enough about the people that if they don't feel safe, you're going to put more money for police or youth intervention or reducing recidivism, that you're going to do the hard work. I've seen it. I mean, I'm in a state right now that's optimistic in a pessimistic country. Now, when you govern in a way to where everybody wins and nobody loses, where you're trying to lift everybody up and kick nobody while they're down, and you get results, and people start seeing it a little bit differently and voting a little bit differently. And I'll say this, in 2024, yes, Trump won my state by 30 points, but we didn't have any of the flags like we did 4 years before. We didn't have any of the signs like we had 4 years before. We didn't have neighbors arguing with each other. Even with that divisive election going on, we were treating each other better than we had in the past. I think that's possible for the country too.
Are you going to run for president in 2028? You thought you were going to get through a whole speech without me asking that question.
I thought we were going to do it. The funny part is I give the same answer every time, but oftentimes I use a different adjective, and it's reported like it's new. Right now, and I mean this, I'm out there trying to speak reason into the chaos. I want to make sure that one of the loudest voices on the Democratic side is one of common ground, common sense, and getting things done. I want it to be a voice that can appeal to not just Democrats, but Republicans and independents, because if they want to follow the same playbook, it'll just mean that people's lives are better. Next year, I'm fully committed to the Democratic Governors Association. We're going to win in places that you aren't expecting, and when Democratic governors win, we do something the Republicans don't. We govern well. You look at Kentucky, and we've broken every record from private sector investment to new jobs to wages to exports to tourism. Our drug overdose deaths are down 3 straight years. I mean, good things are happening there. And good things are happening in a lot of our states governed by Democrats under good leadership that cares. And then after that, we'll see. I remember 2023, I walked off the stage at re-election, and I looked at my wife, and I took a big breath. And I thought, I've run my last election. Being governor of the state you're from is amazing. I mean, you get to fight for your people every single day, and it's more than enough. If this is the last political job I ever have, it is more than enough. But I look at what I see in this country right now, and I will not leave a broken country to my kids. I just will not. And so what's most important to me is that we have a candidate in 2028 that can not only win, but can heal the country, is in a place to do that. And so if my family and I sit down and we think it's me, we'll consider it. But let me tell you, if it's somebody else, I'll get behind them, because I care about this country a lot more than I care about any title.
Let's say you were president. Because I didn't hear a no. Let's say you're president. We have the House, we have the Senate, and of course, the White House. And I'm going to ask this question because
that does sound pretty good.
It does sound pretty good. Hear me out. I'm going to ask this question this way because we are in a new era where we have seen Trump do whatever he wants to do without feeling bound or constrained by anything, not even laws or the Constitution, anything. But in a moment where we can harness that same energy in a virtuous way, and kind of think of a big swing approach to what the future of this country could look like. And I'm talking beyond just the constraints of incrementalism, beyond just, okay, let's fix Medicaid Part D, whatever it is. Like, it's like not that.
Well, that'd be pretty big.
That would be pretty big. But bigger than that, if you were unconstrained by the usual need for compromise, whatever it may be, and there could be a big swing moment, what would you like to see the Democrats accomplish?
Oh, we've got to restore the American dream. And I know that's a big concept, but it has so much work that's inside it. Like, we've got to have more housing to where people can afford it. We've got to increase our wages so that you can not only pay your grocery bill at the end of the week, but you can afford to take your kids on vacation every now and then. We've got to make sure that the next prescription doesn't put you under, or the next car repair. We've got to look at the fundamentals of hardworking Americans, and we've got to make sure that it works. That in this country, if you're willing to work hard and play by the rules, you can not just have a life, but you can have a good life. That is so important to the future of the United States of America. It can bring us all back together again. And it's not just one incremental thing. It's going to be addressing across the board the challenges that we face, and also restoring the faith in the American people that it's true, that it's real, that you support them, and that you're willing to get out there and work for them. Now, that means we're going to have to rebuild a lot. We're going to have to rebuild a federal government that's decimated. But let me tell you, I don't think we ought to rebuild it the same way it was before. You know, as Democrats, I think we can admit that there have been times we've tripped ourselves up where we have so overregulated that we didn't get the advantage or the result for people that we wanted to. Think about the Internet for All program. I mean, what a transformational program. Where we're going to make sure that internet access was available all across America. There isn't 1 inch of fiber in the ground. Why? We put so many rules on it that we didn't deliver for the American people. Now, think about an economic policy. If you put too many constraints on it, it takes too long. And every extra month that it takes is one less family that doesn't have that job, that's not benefiting from it. So we've got to rebuild a government in a way that is effective, that always puts our people first, and that gets results. There can't be a layer of bureaucracy that could simply say no. There has to be a government that both ensures that things are done safely, that's for the environment and for our workers, but gets it done a heck of a lot faster than we've seen in the past. And if we can get results, if we can not only end the cruelty, end the concerns about democracy, but get results for the American people, then we won't see anybody like Trump ever again in our lifetime.
What would be a department or a policy or just something specific, something that does not exist right now that you would like to see implemented or added to the federal government? I'm putting you on the spot here.
I say it somewhat in jest, but we need a secretary of getting stuff done. We do. When a program is stuck, there needs to be that person that can go in there and get it done. We need to have folks at the highest level of the federal government that every day feel the time we have in office is ticking, and we want to make the maximum. We want to help people the most that we can in that time. I mean, I know exactly how long I have left as governor. That's not because it'll be a relief when I'm done. It's that I only have a certain number of days left to get results on what's been an amazing journey. So the folks that will always have that motivation, the folks that will wake up every single day and say, what are we getting done that next day? Part of that is building culture throughout leadership and throughout the government. Part of it is making sure that every single person who works for the federal government feels like when a family succeeds, they're succeeding and doing their job. Critically important. Separately, I think we've got to increase our supply of housing significantly. And so when we look at our current structure, I don't think it's set up to do that. In terms of responding to natural disasters, where I've got more experience, sadly, than just about any governor out there, we've got to move some things that are at HUD over to FEMA or vice versa, because right now you got help immediately when the disaster hits. And then there's like a year and a half, and then you have funding from HUD. So there's some things certainly that we as governors have experienced where I think we can make it more efficient and more effective. But the most important secretary is the one that gets stuff done.
All right. Where do you draw hope from? And I asked that question because I think a lot of us, I mean, this is, we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but we have gone through 10 months of, I think, what most people think would have felt inconceivable 10 months ago, which also leads to added anxiety over the fact that if this is where we're at 10 months in, where on God's green earth are we going to end up 3.5 years in? And so, hearing you speak a lot about the promise of what the future of this country could be, I think that butts up against the reality of a very grim, government state of all things. And so where do you draw hope from where I think, going back to what we were saying before, a lot of what we're seeing feels engineered to take that hope away?
Yeah, I get hope from two places. On one side, it's my faith and family. My faith tells me that we've been up against a lot, but we've always overcome it. The idea that there's a light in the darkness and the darkness has never put it out. And I believe strongly in that. On my toughest days in the pandemic, I would go home after reading a death list that was far too long to a wife and kids that love me and a dog that kind of likes me. But on the other side, I get hope from people. I mean, 7 million people taking to the streets to peacefully protest. That is so special. And I take hope from the fact that at their core, I know that people are good. Why? Because I've seen it. Because after an F4 tornado killed 81 people in my state, stayed on the ground for 200 miles, wiped out my dad's hometown, I saw people put aside any division, anything that they might have disagreed about, and just help each other. And not for days or weeks, but now it's been years. When the worst flooding hit 6 months after, I saw the same thing. I see people's goodness. At the most difficult of times, we've just got to call on that goodness, not just after a disaster, not just during trauma, but each and every other day of our life. So in my faith, the parable of the Good Samaritan is often viewed as just a story, right? A story of what we're supposed to do, but it's actually an instruction. Because that story starts when a lawyer asks Jesus a question, because it's always a lawyer. And at the end of it, Jesus looks back at him and says, now go and do likewise. And so I think that there are just such powerful examples out there about when facing the worst, people are at their best. And we're going to have to call on that. We're going to have to encourage that. But 7 million people getting out there, even when it's scary to do it, that's going to give me hope.
Why does it matter when we see these mass uprisings, when we see these mass movements from folks? Because there is a cynical faction within the Democratic Party that will look at that and say, you know what, we can do these things, we can mobilize 7 million people, but at the end of the day, more bad shit's going to happen. Trump is still going to pilfer the Treasury. He's still going to knock down the White House. He's still going to gift himself jets and host these crypto dinners, and the Republican Party is still ripping away health care from people. And so why does it matter? Why should people continue to stay engaged in moments like this?
It encourages more people to speak up and to speak out. It encourages more people to run for office. It lets them know that we are not alone. And sometimes I think that's what this administration wants us to feel. They want to hit us with the news, a week's worth of news every 4 hours, just hitting you and impacting your mental health. But one of the best things always in our mental health is to be around other people that are going through the same thing. It shows that there are so many different people to lean on, and that I believe when we show collective courage, that's when we can do amazing things. I got invited to the 60th anniversary of Selma. I mean, I got to be a Southern governor that walked with those foot soldiers instead of sent troopers to wait for them on the other side. It was deeply moving, and what hit me was there wasn't one leader that day, but the collective courage of this group to march over that bridge, even knowing what was on the other side. I think that's what we're seeing from people right now. And you never know which demonstration, which act of courage is going to break through, when we're going to have our McCarthyism moment, where people take a breath out, say this has gone too far, and ultimately come back together.
Seems like the perfect place to leave off. Governor Beshear, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Andrea. Also want to be a big thank you to Andrea Grossman and the whole team at Writer's Block for putting on these amazing events. Thank you so much, Andrea. And by the way, thank you to everybody here for coming, for taking time out of your schedules to be here. So much of I think what folks like us push back against is apathy from people. So the fact that you all took time out of your day to come listen to us, to be here, and to stay involved in politics means the world to us. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
I'll plug the book.
And I do have my book. It's out in paperback, Shameless. If you'd like to buy it, this is my shameless plug. So thank you.
Thank you. And remember, Governor Beshear is a guy to watch.